Welcome all to this special edition of Brews and Banter. Tyler, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Corona Premier. Looking at my figure here lately, so it's 10 calories, 2.6 carbs.
Yeah,
so
you got to keep that girlish figure going, man. I'm drinking Kettle House Brewing Company Cold Smoke Scotch Ale. Needed something a little stronger for this topic we're covering today.
This is a heavy subject, man.
It's so heavy. To give you listeners a backstory, this is a story. Two kids came from Jersey, played on the same club team, played on the same juggernaut high school team, became best friends, married best friends, became two U.S. soccer legends, then in a Shakespearean turn of events, became enemies. This is a story of two of America's biggest footballing families, 30 years of history, and a conversation that could never be taken back. We're, of course, talking about the Greg Berhalter story coming out this week about how he allegedly, well, it's not allegedly anymore, but got into an argument with his now wife, then girlfriend Rosalind, and essentially had too many drinks, spilled out into the street. He kicked her, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. Tyler, how'd this all happen?
I mean, it kind of starts way back at the World Cup. That first game when the U.S. played Wales, I would say, is the stem of it. You know, the coach comes out saying Gio Reyna, U.S. soccer player, plays for Borussia Dortmund. He's, arguably one of their better players. I know a lot of people thought he'd be a key part in that team, and he doesn't play. Coach comes out, says he's hurt, battling injury, which we know he had his injury problems before this World Cup. But then in an interview, he comes out and says, no, I'm fine. This was the coach's decision. So right there, you could see the cracks starting on this story, so to speak. And then it just kind of stems from there. After the World Cup, you saw the U.S.'s performances. They make it out of the group. Gio played 50-something minutes in this World Cup.
53 minutes. The majority of that was against the Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah, you saw him come on late as a sub in a couple games. And, there were some questions in that Wales game why Jordan Morris came on and not Gio Reyna type situations. And so there was a little bit of speculation that, things weren't quite what they seemed. And we found out why. After the World Cup, you see Berhalter, he talks at a conference at, what institute was it?
The HOW or Howe
Institute.
Yeah.
And he's talking about...
is the Howe Institute for Society's Summit on Moral Leadership in New York.
That's ironic.
Right.
And he talks about how a player at the World Cup, how wasn't following the rules or performing up to standards and was almost sent home. And that it took a vote from the players to keep him there. And so obviously, he and I guess to his defense, he didn't know that all this would be on the record. He was told it wouldn't be on the record. But
yeah, usually at those kind of conferences too, you think that everything is confidential, right? Especially a leadership conference of, that sort of esteem.
No, nothing stays confidential, man.
Huh?
Nothing stays confidential in today's world.
That's true. In the days of social media.
So, I mean, and it comes out that was an issue. And of course, everyone can figure out which player he was talking about. And it's Giovanni Reyna.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the first. I think this is where it really stems, the big issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as a coach, I understand wanting to kind of disclose that in, maybe what he was talking about as far as being a coach of a high-profile nation in all of world soccer. But yeah, those are comments you cannot say like that.
And not that soon,
not
man.
Okay.
Not that soon. Like I understand if he wants to say something 10 years from now, but I mean, the World Cup had just ended.
2, 3, 4, 5 years. But not days, not 2, 3, 4 days after the World Cup ends.
I mean, when was it? The Howe Institute, I have it on my notes. That was on December 6th.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the U.S. got knocked out on the 3rd. So
yeah, 3 days later, it's a little ridiculous. And I think that was the first big mistake. And it kind of got leaked out because right after that, Giovanni Reyna posts something on Instagram saying, pretty much admitting that he was the player and that, he had his issues, with his behavior and that the team did vote, but they voted for him to stay. And, he had thought that issue was squashed, resolved, and would never be brought up again. And here he is, his coach bringing it up 3 days later after the World Cup ends. And so I can see how he would feel betrayed. And I think that for me, I don't know about you, but for me, that was kind of the nail in Berhalter's coaching career at the U.S. national team level. After those comments, I don't think he should be the coach. I mean, I don't know how you get the trust from those players in the locker room, especially when you said that the issue was resolved and over.
It's hard for me because if you just take his coaching performance in the World Cup, it wasn't good enough for him to stay as coach. Now you find out there's a fractured locker room. The players don't quite trust him. He's up for a review. Now you have this whole scandal to go on top of it. I don't think there's any way back. Like, there's no way for the players to forgive him, for him to continue on without there being some sort of animosity there. And you have one of the biggest players in U.S. soccer, at least one of the biggest up-and-coming talents in Gio Reyna. He's going to be around a lot longer than Greg Berhalter will. So,
for sure.
I don't think you can bring him back, personally.
Oh, you can't. Not at all. And kind of going back, I mean, Gio was frustrated with his playing time at the World Cup. Coach came out and told him before the World Cup that he wasn't going to be a big part of it. And, his parents, he has influential parents. His dad, Claudio Reyna, being a former U.S. men's national team. He was a captain, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he was a captain for 2 World Cups. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 98 and 2002.
And so I think his parents had also vented some frustration to some higher-ups within the U.S. soccer organization.
Well, and, to go along that same point, you got, Rosalind Berhalter and Danielle Reyna. They were, college roommates, played on the same team at UNC Chapel Hill. Greg played there. I mean, they've been best friends their whole life. Both of them. Like, this is something that will rock U.S. soccer for a long time.
Yeah. And, we heard the events of Berhalter with his now wife back when he was 18 or 19 years old. The alleged, or I guess it's not alleged anymore, like you said, the domestic violence issue. And that was all leaked by
Danielle Reyna. Yeah.
Danielle Reyna.
Yeah, she
saying that her son, this is the way he's behaving at 18. He was forgiven and, may have been acting immaturely. She said, look how Greg was acting at that same age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it might have been unintentional. Danielle, disclosing to Ernie Stewart, who is the head of the U.S. Soccer Federation, and Brian McBride, who's a general manager of the men's national team, that she just wanted to give an example, but it happened to be something that was deeply private and a secret, essentially, from the general public, and something that's very, in today's society, at least, it's very damning, but it happened 30 years ago. Like, leave it alone, even though it is an accident.
Yeah, and, no criminal charges were ever brought to Greg, so obviously his now wife forgave him, and they've moved on. They have 4 kids, been married 25 years. So it seems like it's a non-issue for her.
Yeah.
Greg's wife. And like I say, do you think this gets leaked out if Greg talks at that Howe Institute, kind of bringing up that issue of Giovanni Reyna again?
Yes and no. I believe it did happen before the Howe Institute because of, in Danielle's statement that she released, it was because there was social media comments blasting Gio, and she just wanted them to stop. And she felt deeply hurt by Greg, but it didn't intend on the information going public. And then once, Greg said those things at the Howe Institute conference, that was just, an eye for an eye at that point.
I agree. It was an eye for an eye. You hurt my kid. It was, a mama bear trying to protect her son.
Oh, yeah, mama bear protecting the cub. But, Claudio's not innocent in this either. I mean, he had the same conversations with Ernie and Brian.
Yeah, expressing his
frustration. He says he didn't threaten anyone, but you got to know, being that sort of professional, that releasing something like this is going to be completely damning to the person that it's about.
Oh, 100%. And you feel bad for Greg's wife in this whole situation. I mean, she's not involved in playing time or anything like that regarding Giovanni Reina.
No. So, but I feel like, because these families are so close, and the U.S. national team, their motto is one nation, one team, bring up a family aspect of things, wanting it to be a close-knit group. Greg Berhalter in 2018 said he wanted to change the way the world viewed them. How better of a way to really make it look like a family than infighting and squabbling, sharing each other's secrets, and really changing the way the world looks at you.
The world does. I mean, the world's laughing at U.S. soccer right now. This is horribly embarrassing for U.S. soccer and progressing forward in the sport. I mean, you can't imagine if anything like this were to happen in England or Brazil or Spain.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
No, and they wouldn't have weeks on end to file an internal investigation.
No.
They would have to have answers immediately.
Otherwise, the media would be filling in those gaps, and I'm sure their facts may be a little outlandish, if you can call them facts. Their stories would be even more outlandish.
We've seen what the BBC does when they don't have all the facts. They kind of make it up and go at you hard. So it's not looking good for the U.S. men's national team. I feel so bad. Mostly the person I feel worse for is Rosalind Berhalter, because she had nothing to do with this situation. And now she's on blast on social media. And now Greg is, and now her whole family has to deal with this whole scandal that it could potentially ruin Greg's whole career.
It could. I mean, it will definitely for the short term, at least.
So, U.S. Soccer says they are doing a peer performance review on Greg. I think it's a foregone conclusion that he is no longer the coach after news came out yesterday that they already approached Zinedine Zidane and he turned him down.
Which good for U.S. Soccer, at least being ambitious, man, going for a big-time coach like Zizou.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, too. You got coaches like Zizou who, essentially, if I was him, would want to distance myself from U.S. Soccer at this point. Especially right after this scandal.
Because, being a U.S. Soccer fan, you'd love to have him. He'd be a no-nonsense kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have parents squabbling.
Yeah.
Over kids playing time or his kids' role in a team. And that's U.S. soccer, though, for you, man. In a nutshell. Parents squabbling over a child's playing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. U.S. soccer is full of privilege.
It's full of privilege. It's a for-profit organization. So when you pay a lot of money for your kid to play, they expect their kid to play.
Yeah. And it's the only one in the world that is like that. Which is why the U.S. has never come close to winning a World Cup.
And probably never will.
Yeah, probably
unless all those players are born outside of the U.S.
Yeah. You look at their squad, most of them were born on a U.S. military base somewhere else and have lived in a foreign country their whole lives.
Yeah. Anthony Robinson, was he born in England? Musa, I'm pretty sure was born in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, Musa was born in Germany.
Pretty sure McKinney is also one of those.
Yeah. So yeah. It's a tough situation, and not all of the information has been, released yet. I can only imagine there's a lot more to go on with this, and it's not over. It won't be over anytime soon.
No, that's the terrible part for, Berhalter's wife, Rosalind, is this is going to drag on for weeks, probably.
If not years. Yeah.
The damage will be for years, whether, it stays in the media's eye for years. I don't think it will, but.
Which is, it's a shame because, again, I feel bad for Greg and Rosalind. It's such a private matter, and one that they reconciled, forgave each other, came to terms with it, eventually got married after the fact.
Yeah.
And now their best friends have gone and, told the entire public about their deepest, darkest secret.
It's like some Game of Thrones stuff, man. You got two families.
Yeah, well,
US Soccer's the Iron Throne, and they're fighting for it.
I kind of feel like we're about to have a red wedding, so we'll find out. Okay, well, let's get on with the U.S. side of things. If Greg Berhalter's not the coach, who are your top 3 or 4 candidates for the job?
Well, I'll tell you my candidates here in a second, but kind of going back to Greg Halter and what U.S. Soccer is telling him, is they're telling him he's still a candidate to be the coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they're telling him that, because he's definitely not going to be the coach. Can you imagine the sponsors that they would probably lose? No one's going to want to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen from Coca-Cola, they do that all the time. They will drop someone as fast as they can.
So as far as my top coaches moving forward, I think you got to clean house, man. You got to bring someone foreign in. I told you this recently that over the past, I think it was 20, 25 years, all the coaches except for one for the U.S. men's national team have all been from New York or New Jersey.
Yeah, you did tell me that.
Except for Jurgen Klinsmann. He was the only one not from New York or New Jersey that's been a U.S. men's national team coach that's not from New York or New Jersey.
And that is not only is it
crazy.
Surprising, that is an astonishing fact. It shows you how small the politics around the organization are. If it's just from New York and New Jersey and not the rest of the country, when arguably all the best coaches in the MLS even or around the world are not from that area.
Yeah, it's a small, tight-knit group. If you're not in it, you're not getting in it.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the politics of U.S. soccer. It's not about what you know, it's who you know.
It really is.
So,
I mean, it even stems all the way down to the youth level. It's not about how good you are sometimes. It's about, one, how much money you have and who you know, who your parents are.
It's literally who your parents are and how much money you have.
But
I mean, there's a little bit of skill there, but it doesn't go as far.
So kind of moving on, who I think the U.S. should be looking at for coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Zizou would have been a great one, so that's a little disheartening to see him turn it down.
Yeah, I know he was your number 1 pick for them to go.
He would have been probably, but I would say my other number 1 would be Thomas Tuchel.
Okay,
I think he'd be a great coach. I mean, he took Chelsea to a Champions League trophy last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I know he's looking for a job right now. Chelsea let him go to bring in Graham Potter. I think another good coach could be Mauricio Pochettino.
Okay.
I don't think he's had a job since he left PSG.
No, he hasn't.
So I think he did a pretty good job at Spurs. I mean, he took him to a Champions League final.
Yeah.
So not
he did
terrible
great things
there.
at Spurs, a team that hadn't really done much in the last 30 years.
And then I think my other coach would be Marcelo Bielsa, former Leeds coach. You know, he's a wild one. He'd be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a one that if you deal with him in short bursts, not a prolonged period of time, he's the perfect coach.
Well, and that's what national team is.
I would have to agree with you that he might be the underdog best pick in this scenario because he's used to toxic situations and he's used to being that my way or the highway coach as well.
And honestly, like when he had Leeds playing, man, they were playing some beautiful football. And we have a young group of core players in that U.S. team that I think could play that exciting football, and I think they'd be fun to watch. And so those would be my top 3 choices for next coach. Whether we can get any of them, I don't know. That will be difficult. I think a lot of coaches are not going to want this job after seeing all this news come out.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to pitch an awfully enticing package to somebody.
Oh, for real.
As far as what they're going to be able to do and how the U.S. national team is willing to work with them. Personally, my top 3,
let's hear
as much
yours.
as I want to say Morocco's head coach, I'm not going to even try to butcher his name, but I don't think he's going to leave Morocco anytime soon.
No.
You would have to give him probably the largest salary on earth for a national team coach, and I don't think even then he would go.
His heart wouldn't be in it.
Yeah, he's in his home country. He's a stellar coach, but I had to start elsewhere. My number 1, I would probably have to say Joachim Low. Former Germany boss, won the World Cup with them in 2014. He is a very no-nonsense coach. Yes, he is known for sticking his hand down his pants and smelling it afterwards. But you know what? This whole scenario for the United States is pretty much summed up by what he did on the field, sticking his hand down his pants and smelling it. So, we'll see. I think he would be a great coach.
He's definitely a great coach. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he took Germany to a World Cup, so
yeah. And arguably, Germany hasn't done nearly as well since he left.
No.
So he would be my number 1 choice. Next, I probably, because America loves to hire Americans, I probably have to go with Jesse Marsh. But good luck getting him away from Leeds United if Leeds United is backing him.
I don't think he leaves Leeds.
No, I don't think so either. He would be a great choice, though.
If he were to lose his job in the next couple of years, maybe, but I mean, you probably want to coach in now.
You want
you're going to have for the World Cup.
To fix everything and then take this team all the way to 2026 and the World Cup.
Because we have a reputation to build with the World Cup being here in 4 years.
Not only that is you have to essentially rebuild this entire program from the ground up at this point. Just fire sale. Let's just start all over.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's what's needed.
Last one. I'm going to kind of go outside the box here a little bit. I know you had mentioned him to me a little bit, but Andre Villas-Boas, former manager of, Marseille, PSG, Chelsea for a little bit. He's been all over the world and coached internationally as far as national teams go. He's got a very unique style of coaching. He's very eccentric. But I think he's used to building things from the ground up at this point, and I think he would be a great candidate for that.
That's a really good point. Building from the ground up, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think because of how toxic this environment is, I really hope it's not going to end up being one of those, well, we couldn't get anybody else, so let's stick by Greg Berhalter. Because that's not only going to damage the national team, but it will damage Greg as an individual as well. I don't see that.
Why would it damage him as an individual?
How?
Yeah.
Just because of the lack of trust between him and the players, and then the way the media treats scandals like this. They just hang it over your head till the day you die.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Keeping him in the spotlight, it's only going to get worse. Yeah. So, and those are my top 3. I sure hope Greg Berhalter doesn't end up... I feel bad for him because he's going to end up being the scapegoat in this whole ordeal.
Well, no one's going to come out looking good in this ordeal. I mean, obviously Berhalter won't. The Reynas aren't looking good after this. This is definitely tarnishing Claudio Reyna's, U.S. men's national team legacy.
Yeah, I think out of this whole scandal, who will come out the worst? It will be the Reynas. Gio probably will escape it for the most part, but I think Claudio and Danielle, the Claudio's legacy will forever be tarnished because of this.
I think it'll be the Berhalters.
Really?
Like, you're not wrong that Claudio's legacy will be tarnished, but this is going to hurt Berhalter now with his jobs.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I hate to see it because it happened so long ago, like 30 years. That's a whole lifetime for most people. It just breaks my heart. It hurts.
Yeah, it's sad that this had to get brought out. And, yeah, you know, like I said, I wonder if this gets out if he doesn't speak at that Howe Institute.
Yeah, I wonder the same thing.
I think that was the main catalyst for
all
all
this.
this.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Unfortunately, you know, when you're in that kind of situation, sometimes we like to use examples that might not be appropriate, that should have stayed in-house like it does in most locker rooms. But, you know, now it's out there. Can't take it back. It's history now, and the whole world knows.
We'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and you know, we'll keep you updated right here on Brews and Banter. But till next time.
Hopefully not another red wedding, as you said.
I sure hope not. But I mean, if it's a fire sale, it might be about time to just get rid of everybody in the organization and just start from the ground up. Only time will tell. So yeah, like us, all your platforms. Subscribe to our channels, YouTube, Spotify, all your podcast platforms. We're now on Redbubble. So if you want any merchandise, we will be coming out with that soon. Check us out, our Facebook group. We have a lot of pretty cool discussions on there, getting you guys involved.
Yeah,
And
definitely
check
get
out
on
our
the
Instagram
Facebook
and
group.
TikTok. What was that?
So definitely get on the Facebook group. Join the conversation. Tell us what
Yeah.
you want to hear.
Let us
Give
know
us
what
your
you
thoughts
think.
on these issues. We definitely want to hear from you guys.
But till next time, those are our brews. That was our banter.
Here's our brews.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Have a good one, guys.